Hey, what is up, YouTube gaming family? It is K right here. All right, let's talk about it, man. I got another video for y'all today. Shout out to Zhao Hao Trinomir. He is a pretty good Trinomir main based out of China, if I'm not to be mistaken. I think he plays on the Korean server. I think Korean servers are basically available for the Chinese players, and I don't think the Chinese super servers are quote unquote legal in China anymore because the Chinese, communist government wanted to basically ban it, for some weird reason, which is really stupid. And China's a really garbage country. But that's besides the point. Yeah, let's talk about it, man. I got some League of Legends content to bring to you guys, and definitely go subscribe to this channel, Zhao Hao Trinomir. I don't know if this guy actively uploads his streams, but if you guys want to go check him out, I think he has his own Twitch channel, but I don't know where exactly he be streaming. I think he streams, on his own Asian base, I guess like streaming service that's based out of like where he's at. But yeah, he's a pretty good YouTuber. I like watching him a lot. He's actually one of the best Tritomir players worldwide. And there's that other YouTuber called Fogda, like for the win. He's okay. I mean, I think he is good, but I think Zhao Hao is like way better than him. All right, so yeah, let's get right into it. Let's talk about League of Legends, man. There's a lot to talk about with this game, and I wanted to get my take on League real quick before I wrap things up for tonight. Is League of Legends a dying game, and will this game, fully be dead, heading into the future? So yeah, let's get right into it. Personally, with me, I've been playing League of Legends ever since I was like, I want to say 18 years old, and I mean I'm 30 now, and I will say like this game is okay, but the balancing of this game is horrible. The scaling is actually really terrible within certain characters, and the game just doesn't scale to like the right level of which, um, you're actually able to like play the game by yourself, and if you're doing well, then you should be given the opportunity to be stronger than than your than your enemy laners. So there's obviously top lane, jungle, mid lane, bot lane, and then support. And personally, with me, I like playing top lane and jungle. Jungle sometimes I can do very well. It's just like if I have shitty teammates that don't help me, win the game, and I'm trying to like be a good jungler to say, hey, I'm coming up for a gank, and then they don't help you when you are trying to gank their lane. That's where the toxicity comes in, and people start being disrespectful, and then people want to start raging like mindless piece of shit children. So yeah, I'm gonna explain on that particular manner and personally why the game will die, because this game is basically on its last legs in terms of survivability. But I just think like in terms of where things are going right now, the only means of this game ever surviving is that the game needs to be balanced better. The community needs to have better communication in games. Like there needs to be voice chat. This game needs to have better scaling of items. I think like you know certain champions like Lux having like infinite CC whenever she's able to like hit you with like a good ability, and she could just basically win the game by just spamming broken like abilities is just terrible. I don't think it's right and fair. When you play this game, you're having to deal with like the worst matchups ever, and it's like that's basically on you if you don't know how to play up against a tough matchup, and it's somehow a skill issue when you're going up against a champion that has more broken mix-ups to do more damage to you, and they don't have to get punished for it as much compared to you, where you're actually taking a risk in order to fight the champion that you're laning up against, or if it's like a different enemy laner that's having to gank you, and then you have to deal with all the broken nonsense out of the game. So personally, with me, like I played this game since season 10. And I will say season 10, in my honest opinion, was probably one of like my favorite seasons because you were able to kind of use like basically whatever item that you wanted to. But the problem was is that the scaling with certain characters was not all the way correct. So you had to kind of be a little bit careful with how you're building with your characters. I do know with this new season, with season 14, I believe. Hold on. All right, I'm back. So yeah, I do know with season 14 does give you the ability to do what you were able to do in season 10, but the only difference is that you're limited to kind of using certain items, which they've now done a pretty decent job with you having to select items that are limited to your selection. So if you choose like a legendary item for a certain character, you have to make sure that that item is not having to scale. Well, basically, like you're limited with certain items that you can select. So like let's just say if you wanted to use like an item like Sterix Gauge to be stacked with let's just say black, well, I forgot what that other item is. Sterix Gauge, like I don't even know, like I'll use like a character like Nasus, right? Nasus, he scales, with that item, right? And I'm trying to think of that one item that's really good with Sterix Gauge. I think it's oh man, I keep forgetting, man. Is it Black Cleaver that you're not able to build with Sterix Gauge? I think it's that. Well, actually no, I don't think that's the item, but basically like if you oh, wait, hold on. I'm actually trying to think of it. Um is it Warmog's armor or is it Heartsteel? Well, yeah, I'm not too entirely sure, but basically if you guys know what I'm talking about, if you're not able to like use broken items together, then therefore it's not there therefore the game limits you on how much broken items you can put onto your build, which is decent because it balances out the amount of broken BS in the game. But the problem is that based off of your character of how it's being coded out with their stats, you have to be mindful like that your character is not able to take on the best matchups, and you have to be smart with how you're engaging in team fights with that character. So that's the biggest problem with League of Legends. There's not enough counterplay to characters where if they're broken with that amount of damage, you're not able to kind of go out of like your way to actually beat them. So you actually have to basically rely off of your teammate in order to beat that character for you to win lane. And also the biggest problem is that the matchups for a lot of characters are actually really unscaled to the point where, let's just say if I like playing my mains like Mordekaiser, Nasus, and Tryndamere, and I go up against like a Vayne main, which Vayne players are very toxic top lane, but they're able to just win lane so easily because if they get that one little poke off of you where they're able to just kite you, which that's just like a saying for you to kind of like zone you out for you to kill you easier, it makes it a lot harder for you to win the game, and you have to basically rely off of your jungler to gank you multiple times in order for Vayne to basically respect you and to not, even try to like push their lane up against you. Also, another big issue with the game is the laning phase. I think the laning phase is horrible. Like you see in this video, you have to be really careful with how you're controlling your lane. There's certain instances where enemy laners will try to zone you out to try to freeze, let the lane, over by their tower. So that's the biggest issue with this game. It's very difficult for you to get wins in this game if you're not able to competitively understand the lane, like the laning phase, and if you're not farming correctly, where you're having to keep up with your enemy laner competition, it makes it a lot harder for you to win the game where you're not able to kind of do what you want to do. So therefore you're at a disadvantage, so you actually have to be careful with how you're going to win the game. So I will say that's like the biggest downfall with this game because Like I'll just kind of use Mordekaiser up against Tryndamere for like for example, like Mordekaiser can defeat Tryndamere if you're playing smart as a Mordekaiser player. But the problem is that Mordekaiser's laning phase is not always the greatest against Tryndamere, because what Tryndamere players like to do a lot is that they like to, basically spam a lot of, pressure onto you. So you actually have to be careful of how you're going about fighting a Tryndamere player, because if you allow Tryndamere to kill you a lot early in the early game, then Tryndamere is going to be able to do whatever he wants to do in order to basically lane bully you, which that's just a term for. Wait, hold on, let me pause it. All right, I'm back. So yeah, basically the whole deal with like lane bullying is that lane bullying gives the enemy advantages for them to beat you in lane, where they're able to get the let the lane battle advantage against you with their minions for them to beat you out, or to beat you every single team fight, because they're having to beat you in the 1v1. So, I mean, that's always like the biggest problem, because, you have to deal with like a lot of bad, crappy, matchups depending on how the circumstances go. But whenever you're playing smart, and you're having to, make the game competitive, there's always a potential opportunity for you to win. But you have to basically think things out through in order for you to make the game, turned around for you to win. And I mean, there's many instances where, like, you may think that you are doing well, but in certain cases it's not always like that, because you know again, like, League of Legends is a team-based game, so you have to think really smart about how you're going to go about playing into certain matchups. So if you're not being smart, then your enemy laner that you're laning up against is going to be a lot difficult for you to face. And, I'll just use Tryndamere as a good example. He was at one point one of like the worst champions, to actually play, which, for me, as I stated, like, I started playing this game back in season 10, and Tryndamere, he was actually really good back in season 10, but in the early phases of League of Legends, he was actually a really bad character, where he wasn't able to kind of like get like his R to really get procced up, like, for him to like take like all this damage for him to actually win trades. And his Q wasn't really that good to actually heal him that much, as you can kind of see in this particular video, where, if Tryndamere has the ability to, build up his rage meter for him to actually beat you, off of like a trade, that actually makes Tryndamere a lot stronger for him to kind of like go to that next particular level for him to win, the late game a lot faster, because, if Tryndamere has the ability to heal and produce a lot more sustainability in tough matchups, then that makes Tryndamere a way stronger character for him to go out of his way to actually be more, how should I say, like, oppressive. And therefore, if he's able to win, then that makes Tryndamere a very strong character for like a lot of players to deal with. But let's just say if I use a character like Nasus, he's a strong late game scaling champion. But the problem with Nasus is that I have to be careful having to farm with Nasus, because Nasus, he gets his power through his stacks. And the biggest problem with Nasus is that his stacks are actually really bad, where he only gets 3 points per stack off of small minions, and then off of large particular minions he gets plus 12, which is pretty decent. But I kind of wish for small minions he actually got plus 6, and then for larger minions he only got plus 15. I think that would make a way better, sense for Nasus players to kind of like actually have like a stronger early game, and then therefore for the late game he's able to scale a lot faster. But, Riot likes to hold back certain characters because they know how strong that they are. But that's just how everything goes with this game. Now, as far as this game ever surviving, in terms of balancing, I think balancing is really terrible. And it just pretty much shows, like, Riot Games has like the same mindset as NRS for Mortal Kombat, and I don't think Riot will ever take care of the balancing situation until the game actually fails. So personally, with me, I think this game will fail. It's only going to be like a matter of a time when this game actually gets worse with with the toxicity, and I think eventually the toxicity will go to like a level where people will end up being more violently pissed off, and I think that the game will be done. Eventually, there has to be like a breaking point because I don't think that the game's ever going to survive. But that's just me. So I just don't know how that's gonna go down. But if it ever does end up, having to survive, it's gonna probably survive with like very few fans actually supporting it. And I personally like to see League of Legends fail as a game because I don't think this game deserves to have any more content. If you're going to like be spamming a lot of broken characters and that the game's not fun. You know what I'm saying? Like there's not enough defense in this game. There's a lot of offense that favors a lot of. All right, I'm back. So yeah, I said that there's a lot of offense that favors a lot of meta, and people abuse the meta for them, for for them to win games a lot faster. So if you're using a character that's like a very easy character for you to play, but you know that you can get easy wins off of that character, you're going to go ahead and play that character every single day. So like let's just say if you're playing ADC bot lane and you're playing Trishana, which she's a pretty good OP character, but she can easily get you wins where if you just spam like the same broken items every single time, and let's just say if you're scaling with like your attack speed and damage and your crit, you're going to be a very broken threat every single time, whether that's in low elo heading into high elo, and that's always going to make you a very strong character. But the problem is that ADC is a very toxic lane with you facing the other enemy laners with two champions fighting at the bot side, but you also have to deal with like your crappy support where if your support isn't helping you or you're not being helpful to your support, then you guys end up being toxic, and then pretty much the game is actually over. So yeah, I mean that's really like the biggest problem for League of Legends. There's a huge lack of communication with having no voice chat. I wish that the game actually did have voice chat because like I kind of wish like if it did, this game would be a lot more fun to play because there would be a incentive for people to actually like play the game and be competitive. So I think if you compare this game to like Halo or let's just say Gears of War, which that's very competitive, those games have voice chat, and nobody's not complaining about Halo and Gears of War being too toxic because players are getting too pissed off at each other. No, like the game is actually fine, and people don't need to go out of their way being rude and disrespectful. They just want to win. But for League of Legends, Riot Games suddenly thinks that having voice chat would mean everybody's just going to make death threats, to one another, and they're going to just be disrespectful to one another. And I don't think that's ever to be the case. I think Riot Games should really do that if they want to save their franchise. So therefore, we actually have, you know, like a very how should I say, um, a very strong fan base that actually cares about winning, and we actually have like a healthy fan base where if you get all these like piece of crap, delusional trash ass, like I basically just call them keyboard warrior gamers. Basically, they're just social justice warrior gamers that want to silence you and not like basically not even how should I say not even acknowledge like the issue, and they just want to be a opportunistic liar. Like that's just how I look at them. Like they're not wanting to care for the game. They're just caring to hate on those that criticize League of Legends. So if it means that there are people like myself that don't like listening to people that run their mouth to tell you to shut up because you're actually wanting the game to change, then those people are just bad for the game because they are shitty, crappy people. Now, another problem with this game is the forfeiting culture or the FFing in the game, where people surrender way too much in this game. If you're winning in this game and your team ends up wanting to FF, especially in a ranked game or let's just say a normal game, somehow Riot Games thinks that it's okay for you to get banned if you talk shit to somebody on your team. Which, shout out to a YouTuber by the name of Video Game Donkey. Like, this guy was probably the most funnest YouTuber talking about League of Legends at one point in time. But then eventually, he just ended up basically stopped doing League of Legends because the minute he gets banned for talking smack to another player that was disrespecting him, well, basically just playing like dog shit, and then he ended up saying like some really disrespectful crap to the other teammate, which the teammate was being a toxic piece of shit. He had every right to say that, but it's like, he said it because he got really pissed off. So it's like, by that standard, it should mean that Video Game Donkey should have never gotten, like, he should have never gotten banned. Like, the player that plays like shit, that chooses to play like a meta dog, where they're just going for meta, but they're not actually playing with skill, or actually even competing to be. Hold on, let me pause. All right, I'm back. So yeah, basically what I was trying to say is that when you have players that play for meta, but they're not even playing to be smart, they're just playing to be brain dead pieces of shit. That's what creates like the toxicity, where you have a lack of communication, where people don't choose to actually be a teammate, and therefore they want to be senseless pieces of shit. So I personally get that. And I mean, there are workarounds for it where you could create a Discord and people can communicate, but 9 times out of 10, not a lot of people like to communicate on Discord. A lot of idiots like to be very stupid and be very silent, not wanting to talk to you. So it's like, it, like, to me personally, it makes the game harder for you to play, because having that lack of communication with a lack of voice chat makes the game far more toxic, and people are not able to communicate effectively, as a team. So in my years of playing League of Legends, I just think that the game is very broken with how they operate, and there's really nothing that you can actually do about it until this game actually falls apart, and there's no League of Legends content to be made at all because everybody hates this game. So personally, with me, I think the game needs to die. I don't think this game has a purpose anymore. It did have a purpose at one point in time where the game was fun, where if you grinded, for normal games or even ranked games, which to me personally, like, well, to be honest with a lot of people, I didn't really play ranked like that, but I will say, like, you know, with my current progress of me playing solo queue, I did not feel as happy when I played solo queue compared to playing normals, but I felt more content playing solo queue compared to normals, because a lot of people in normals, they end up pissing you off more in normals. So if you want to have like a good day of playing League of Legends, like, to me personally, playing solo queue helps you get by through your day faster, because you don't have to deal with like all the toxic idiots of having to be, well, like, not entirely true, but you don't have to deal with too many people having to play very stupid and play brain dead, but they're not actually wanting to win because they're actually just dicking like around in versus, well, basically blind, like, blind normals, blind pick normals, or just draft normals. So it's not like so that the game is not really competitive, and it's not even fun, because people are just, like, basically people are just dicking around, being lazy to not actually be like a teammate. Therefore, it's harder for you to win because you're not able to actually have like a team that actually cares. So that's what causes like the game to be terrible, because everybody shits on this game really badly. So it's like, why the hell should anybody waste their time having to put their effort into a game that's not worth, putting your time and money into it? Because the problem is that you're having to compete with like a lot of broken, yeah, with like a lot of broken shit, in the game, with a lot of broken teams, and you have to deal with really like very dumb toxic teammates. So to me personally, I don't think that's a healthy game, and I think it's a dog shit, trash video game. Another thing that I don't like out of League of Legends is the lack of, objectives for you to, make a comeback in the game. I think the Rift Herald needs to be buffed a lot better. There needs to be counterplay to the Rift Herald. So like if you're, a enemy team that's fallen behind, and you have a special ability to kind of like defeat the Rift Herald, to like I don't even know if you can make some counterplay to beat against, the Rift Herald, where like if the enemy team is trying so hard to defeat you, like in a 15-minute game, there should be counterplay to defeating, certain, objective perks like the Rift Herald, or even Baron, where like you're able to actually like turn the game around and actually beat the enemy team like, for you to win. Also, I think Elder Dragon is a little bit too busted. I think Elder Dragon should get nerfed, or it should at least not be in the game, because I don't think it's fair when you're playing Let the Game and you have Elder Dragon in the game. Because it's like the problem is like, yes, it's good to end the game for League of Legends, but the problem is that you have way too many people that get into this game with the bad intention of being very lazy, and therefore when you're trying to win the game, and therefore your teammates are not even choosing to help you win the game when the opportunities are there for you to win. Therefore, it makes it harder for you to even like get to that level of you even trying to get the Elder Dragon, because it's basically like a 50-50 coin flip toss where, you're wait, hold on. All right, I'm back. So yeah, basically back to what I was saying. It's a 50-50 coin flip toss where you have to basically rely off of your teammates to actually even try to play as a team with you, and you're dealing with a lot of crazy corrupt BS where you're going to have that stupid teammate where if you're winning the game and therefore your teammates are dicking around to not get Elder Dragon, and they're just too focused on just sitting in their lane while the game is very clutch and very tight, and then your team ends up dying when Elder Dragon is up. And let's just say there's four enemy champions, and there's two of you, like, on the team that are not able to get Elder Dragon. So you have to be dealt with the issue of you having to fight those four enemy team laners, where you actually have to get the Elder Dragon, and it's like, you're already in crunch time, so you have to be very smart with how you go about actually getting the objective, because if you don't get Elder Dragon, then you're screwed. Like your team will automatically lose the game, and therefore Elder Dragon will just make everything easier for the enemy team to just, kill you, and then, if your teammates don't come back on time to respawn, then you're basically dead. So yeah, I just find that to be absolutely trash. I think enemy teams, well, teammates should be penalized for playing stupid. Like nobody should have to deal with that, in my honest like opinion. I think that if you like personally with me, if you ask me, I think that this game really favors a lot of stupid gameplay, and you actually have to like basically rely off of broken mechanics with your champion to barely win, because there are certain champions in this game that are very broken. Like I'll say champions like Silas that you see right here, even though like to me personally, no matter how much you nerf him, he'll always find ways to basically be broken with his AP. But there are champions like that exist in the game that are very broken. You have champions like Shaco, very broken champion. He can use his clone to trick you and to make you feel like that you're not winning the game because he's able to basically zone you out with his boxes or jack in the boxes, and he can just kill you, within one instant. And then on top of that, his aura is very broken with using like the clone setups where if you hit his clone, they'll explode and then he'll be able to do a crap ton of damage, to kill you. So, I mean, yeah, like I'm not gonna go down through like the whole list, but yeah, like you guys get what I'm saying. Like, there's not enough counterplay for a lot of broken items. It's usually like high damage items that slice away your health. There needs to be better defensive items. Like there needs to be defensive magic resistance items. There needs to be better armor piercing items that can give you life steal. I feel like that they should have had that into the game. They should have like I was gonna say Riot should have never got rid of this one item, but I used to like this one item called stone. Yeah, yeah. It was called stone plate. Yeah, that item was actually really good. I actually like enjoyed using that item. It was actually really good on Nasus and Mordekaiser, where you were able to kind of like use it as like a means to team fight, and it would serve as like a basically it would serve as like as like an extra shield, like for your character to make things a lot easier for you to win team fights. Another item that I actually miss in the game was called it was called Frozen Mallet. I actually like that item a lot. I actually wish Riot actually brought back that item into the game. They should add in newer items like magic resistance items, where you can scale with those items, so therefore you're able to deal basically have more tolerance, to AP items for magic damage. So I think like Riot should do something like that to kind of like make the game more competitive and a lot easier for you to win games. Also, they need to have anti CC items. I feel like that they need to have more tenacity with items for you to fight against CC. So yeah, I mean that's pretty much it. I mean I think this game alone will die off, as a company, and I think Riot Games understands that because this game is heavily influenced with Chinese corporatism. Oh wait, hold on, give me 1 second. All right, I'm back. So yeah, basically what I was trying to say is that based off of these circumstances, um, there are plenty of problems that this game has, and therefore the main issue of it is that there is not enough nerfing of the items to make the game feel more balanced and feel more competitive to play, along with the nerfing of the whole character roster, where characters that are broken should not be able to scale fast to do a lot of damage to you, and therefore the game with spells and abilities should be a lot easier for you to compete against. So you're not having to you're not having to struggle, but you're not having to deal with a lot of broken BS in the game. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I think this game will die out eventually. And then once it does, then I think, all the other competitive games that are out there, especially like MMO RPGs, I mean, if you brought in like a game like let's just say Dota, and Dota came back and Dota ended up being far more successful than League, that'd be really good. I know that there's that one game called Supervive, which I don't think that game's gonna be competitive enough to beat League. I'd like to see like a military shooter type game take over. So I'd like to see that game come. I'd like to see a game like that, come into the mix. I wouldn't mind seeing Smite, become a thing, but maybe if you actually had maybe something like a League of Legends type game where characters are basically more dependent on themselves, and you actually had a competitive game where it's not based off of minions, it's also based off of like how you fight as a team. I think something like that would be pretty cool. So Yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. Let me know what you guys think about League of Legends, and I am out. And be sure to like, rate, comment, subscribe, and I will come back with more content to talk about certain characters and certain updates on League of Legends. And I'll see you guys later. All right, peace out. Please subscribe to the channel, and shout out to Zhao Hao Chernomir. Definitely go subscribe, to his channel. All right, thank you. Bye.